Today we're going to make Grandma Bedenbaugh's apple pie. My children want the recipe and I think this would be easier than trying to write it down and walk them through it since they're spread over the country and you can't see it every time. First we're going to make the crust. In this food processor I've got 2 cups of all-purpose flour and a half a teaspoon of sugar, salt. And I'm just going to pulse it once or twice to mix the salt up. Next, in the crust process, I'm going to add 3/4 of a cup of shortening. In this case, I'm using Crisco, and that's because members of my family are vegetarian. Normally, I would make this pie with lard. It comes out equally as well. Make sure you keep everything cold as you can. The lard should be frozen, not frozen, but as cold as you can get it. Put it in with the flour. Pulse it. Until the flour looks like large cornmeal. At that point, you need ice water. Again, the colder the better. And the reason that is you want to keep the flour and the lard or margarine as cold as you can while you're processing it so that it doesn't melt until it gets into the oven. Otherwise you don't get a fluffy crust. So add 3 tablespoons of water. Keep pulsing. You may be able to add 1 other additional tablespoon, no more. The idea is this should be turning into a ball. It should start collapsing on itself. As you see here. Now, take the crust, pour it into a plastic bag. In the plastic bag, form it into a ball. Again, working quickly because you don't want this to all warm up. So you put this into a ball, mash it so it's relatively round and flat, like this, and plop it in the fridge while you get the apples ready for the next process. While the crust is chilling, it's time to prepare your apples. I've always preferred to use a Granny Smith apple. They're not too bitter, not too tart, they're sweet enough, and plus the fact they don't collapse in the pie. They hold their shape rather well. It's a little trick to preparing them. Basically use a potato peeler to get their skin off, and you can, it's really quite easy. I can do all these apples in less than 10 minutes. Now, I'm using about 3.5 pounds, 3¼ pounds of apples because I'm making a larger pie. If you use a standard pie pan, you might be able to get away with 2.5 pounds. I'm putting them in this pan here, a large pie pan. Once you peel the apple, quarter it, remove the remaining skin that you've missed with the potato peeler, cut out the core, and slice the apple. Each quarter should generate probably 6 or 7 pieces of apple, to give you an idea how thick it should be. Now we're going to start rolling out the flour. It's been chilling for about 15 to 20 minutes in the refrigerator, so it's nice and cold. I put the oven to 375. We're ready to start assembling the pie. I'm rolling it out right here on the countertop. Use a lot of flour. This is the most difficult part of the entire process. Rolling this out because you want to keep this pie fluffy. So you can see the idea is to roll this out into a round pie crust. As we're rolling this out, you'll find it gets a little frustrating. It keeps breaking apart. It is a little bit easier if you make your crust out of lard versus Crisco. And you'll see when I put this into the pie pan that a lot of it's going to be patchwork because it will fall apart in my hands as I put it into the pie pan. But patchwork works. And actually, to release the crust from the countertop, because you don't want it to stick there, a little trick that I've learned, the long-bladed flexible knife, and go underneath the pie crust. Stop. Put it down. It's really so much easier with lard. Don't say anything to anybody.
Oh, that's on video, Wayne.
We've wrestled the pie crust into the pie, patched up where we had to. Now here's a little trick that I've learned to make this a little bit more decorative. You just hold your finger like this and hold your knuckle like this and work your way around the pie to give it a bit of a decorative crust and bring the crust up high enough where it holds plenty of apples. Okay, now we're going to assemble the pie. Alright, we're assembling the pie now. The apples will turn just a touch brown while waiting for the pie, but that's not a problem. Mound the apples up because they will shrink down. I actually probably could have used another apple in this pie. Okay, when you're making a large pie, cover the pie with 1 cup of granulated sugar. It may seem like a lot of sugar, it's not. Use it all. Cover the pie well. And do this after you have put the apples in the pie. Some people try and mix the pie and the cinnamon and the apples all together. Don't. Do it this way because it gets 3 separate layers of flavor. Cinnamon, sugar, apples. Be very generous with the cinnamon. Okay, as we're getting ready to make the crumb topping, we need to add 3/4 of a cup of sugar. This is not an exact science. Have room temperature butter, which makes this process much easier. So you're going to take the room temperature butter and you're going to put that into this flour and sugar mixture. Now, hopefully your hands are clean, because what you're going to do is put your hands in here and you're going to squeeze the butter and the flour and the mixture together to make flakes. Once you get these all mixed up like this, you take them out by the handful, put them on your pie. And if you pinch the mixture in between handfuls, it helps them go a long way. And by the way, there's no such thing as using too much topping on these pies. It's delicious. Okay, now your pie is ready for the oven. Oven's been preheated to 375 degrees. Take your pie, put the rack somewhere in the middle, put the pie in. I put a piece of aluminum foil underneath it because it does tend to spill over on occasion. And cook it for an hour. If you're making a smaller pie, an hour still works because the pie is a similar density, it's just a smaller area. We'll take a look in an hour and see what it looks like. Okay, it's been about an hour at 375 degrees. Let's see what we've got. And it looks pretty good. I think we're done. Put this on a rack, let it cool. When it cools down, cover it loosely with aluminum foil. No need to refrigerate this. It stays perfectly good. Actually gets better for 2 or 3 days on the counter. Maybe longer, but I've never had one last longer than 3 days. So good luck with the pie. I hope it comes out well and you enjoy it.